Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into Bitcoin, but maybe from an angle you haven't considered as much. We're looking at it through the eyes of Knuts Svanholm.
Yeah, he's a really interesting thinker in this space. Our source material comes from an article covering one of his talks from the Bitcoin Matrix series. It was titled, Knuts Svanholm, Bitcoin is Hope.
Exactly. And our mission today is, well, to unpack his view. He doesn't just see Bitcoin as, digital money or an investment.
No, not at all. For him, it's much bigger. It's about personal sovereignty, freedom, almost a philosophical tool.
Right. We want to explore that and maybe give you a shortcut to understanding these deeper ideas he's putting forward. It might even make you think differently about what freedom means today.
Especially in our digital world, right? How does money fit into that picture of freedom?
Good question. Okay, let's jump in and unpack this. So right off the bat, Knuts makes a really strong statement. He completely rejects what he calls paper Bitcoin.
He means things like Bitcoin ETFs or, keeping your Bitcoin on an exchange where you don't control the private keys yourself. Custodial wallets.
Yeah, exactly those. His line in the sand is pretty famous. Not your keys, not your coins. It seems to underpin everything else he talks about.
It really does. He argues that holding your own keys self-custody isn't just some technical detail. It's like the absolute foundation for achieving real sovereignty.
Without it, you're just participating, not truly owning.
That's his point. Can you really say something is yours if someone else, a third party, can basically lock you out or take it away? It's a fundamental question of control.
He uses a great analogy to explain it to. He says owning Bitcoin on, say, Coinbase is like owning gold, but someone else keeps it in their vault.
Right. You don't really have access. They hold the key to the vault door, and, well, they could decide not to open it for you anytime.
That really clarifies it, doesn't it? Makes you think about what owning actually means beyond just seeing a balance on a screen. What stands out to you about that idea?
For me, it's how this concept of individual control, of sovereignty, then scales up. Knuts doesn't just see it as a personal finance thing. He thinks it changes how we interact as a society.
How so?
He frames Bitcoin as a tool for what he calls civilized interaction.
Civilized interaction. Okay, contrast that with
Well,
what?
fiat currencies, dollars, euros, the money governments issue.
Mm.
He suggests those systems have inherent elements of coercion.
Coercion,
Yeah.
like inflation,
Right.
government interference.
Exactly. Inflation eroding your savings, surveillance of transactions, the potential for freezing accounts, things that happen without your direct consent.
Mm.
He sees that as, well, less civilized.
So he draws this distinction. Bitcoin enables voluntary, direct, peer-to-peer exchange.
Which he calls civilized exchange,
Mm.
versus using fiat, where these intermediaries, governments, central banks kind of step in, manipulate things, take a cut through inflation.
Right, taking a share of productivity, as he puts it.
Yeah. It's fascinating how he frames it as this fundamental choice we have as a society about how we want to exchange value.
So for Knuts, Bitcoin isn't just another tech innovation. It's more like an agreement.
Or a communications protocol, yeah.
Huh.
A way for humans to agree on and exchange value directly without needing permission or fearing interference.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Another really core concept for Knuts is this idea of time preference.
Ah, yes. Time preference. It sounds academic, but it's actually quite simple.
Break it down for us. High time preference.
High time preference is basically wanting things now, spending money as soon as you get it, maybe out of fear the money won't be worth as much later, or just focusing on immediate gratification. Think consumer culture, maybe.
Okay, so living for today and low time preference.
That's the opposite. Prioritizing the future, saving, investing, planning long-term, delaying gratification because you believe it'll pay off down the road.
So how does Bitcoin fit into this?
Well, Knuts argues that traditional fiat money, because it tends to inflate and lose value.
It pushes you towards high time preference,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Spend it before it's worthless.
Exactly. Bitcoin, he argues, does the opposite. Because it's designed to be scarce, potentially deflationary, it encourages saving. It rewards holding it long term.
So inherently promotes low time preference.
That's the idea.
Mm.
It shifts the incentive structure away from constant consumption and towards saving and planning.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. Knuts connects this shift directly to hope.
Yes. He says this ability to save, to plan, knowing your savings won't just melt away, allows people to actually have hope for their future, to escape what he calls a fear loop.
A fear loop, like
Yeah.
constantly worrying about the future financially.
Yeah, feeling trapped in a cycle of just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
He thinks Bitcoin offers a way out, a foundation upon which people can build and plan with confidence. It's quite a profound connection between monetary characteristics and, well, human psychology.
It really is. Thinking about hope as something enabled by the type of money we use.
Wow.
Now, Knuts also shares some practical advice based on his own journey. He talks about moving from regular fiat jobs into working full-time in Bitcoin education.
Right, and his advice is pretty straightforward. Stack and wait.
Weaning.
Accumulate Bitcoin steadily, patiently. Don't try to time the market perfectly. Just build your position over time, stacks sats, as they say,
Yeah.
and then wait. Let the potential appreciation work for you.
So don't rush into quitting your job or taking big risks.
Exactly. He advises against using leverage, taking out loans against your Bitcoin. He suggests waiting until your Bitcoin position allows you to transition more comfortably, if that's your goal. It's patient, low-time preference advice.
That makes sense. He also touches on governments getting involved, maybe through those paper Bitcoin instruments like ETFs or holding reserves on exchanges.
Yeah, he sees that as sort of inevitable for broader adoption, but he definitely has warnings about it.
He feels it dilutes sovereignty, right? Even if it gets more people interested.
Precisely. Because it centralizes control again, moves away from the not your keys, not your coins principle. Even if institutions or governments are holding Bitcoin, if individuals aren't holding their own, something fundamental is lost in his view.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Adoption versus core principles.
Definitely. And he has this very pragmatic take, saying something like, Bitcoin might be for enemies too, but that doesn't mean you need to trust or like them.
Huh. Okay, a very clear-eyed perspective on how the world works, even with Bitcoin in it.
Absolutely. No illusions there.
Digging deeper into the philosophy, Knuts tackles the question of whether Bitcoin is divine. What's his take?
Well, he seems skeptical about using that specific word in like a traditional religious sense.
Okay.
But he does acknowledge what he calls its near mythic power.
Near mythic power, in what way?
And its ability to enable purely voluntary civilized relationships, as he defines them, a way to interact based on mutual agreement, using this transparent protocol completely outside of systems based on violence or coercion.
So not divine like a deity, but powerful in a foundational, almost moral sense.
Exactly. He really elevates it beyond just being code or money. He sees it as a tool, maybe even a catalyst, for more ethical human interaction on a global scale. It's about building trust through math and transparency, not through intermediaries you might not trust.
That's a really compelling way to frame it. It positions Bitcoin as a force for a certain kind of morality and exchange.
I think that's a fair way to put it. A moral force for voluntarism.
Okay, let's talk about one of the most striking things from the source material, his use of the Shawshank Redemption. That's a powerful analogy.
It really is.
Well-
He uses characters from the movie to illustrate different responses to systemic control, or what he sees as government overreach.
Right. So first there's Brooks, the old librarian.
Yeah, Brooks, who gets paroled after decades inside but just can't cope with freedom. He's become institutionalized. Knuts sees him as representing people who are so dependent on centralized control that they can't function without it, sometimes leading to, well, self-destruction.
A pretty stark image.
Yeah.
Then there's Red, Morgan Freeman's character.
Red, who famously warns Andy, hope is a dangerous thing. Knuts directly pushes back on that.
He says hope is rational and necessary.
Exactly. He believes that having hope, believing you can build a better future through your own actions, is essential. It's not foolish, it's vital.
And finally, Andy Dufresne himself, the protagonist.
Andy is the key. He spends years patiently, secretly digging his tunnel. For Knuts, Andy is the metaphor for Jitcoiners,
How so?
building their freedom slowly, persistently, brick by brick, or rather, sat by sat. Even while living within the existing system, the metaphorical prison, they are working towards their own liberation.
Wow. So the lesson is persistence, individual action.
Yeah, and the profound takeaway that Knuts draws is essentially, you're going to die anyway, you might as well live free. It's this call to choose freedom, choose action, even if the path is long and difficult, like Andy's tunnel.
That's quite something. It really reframes the act of saving Bitcoin into something much more significant.
Definitely more than just investing.
Knuts also directs some sharp criticism towards money printing. He sees it as, well, a couple of things, right?
Yeah, he identifies it as partly a flaw in human nature.
Yeah.
The temptation to want something for nothing, the free lunch.
But also as a systemic problem, exploitation.
Absolutely. He points to how politicians, especially during crises like the COVID pandemic, resorted to massive money printing.
And he connects this to more than just inflation, doesn't he?
He does. He suggests it contributed to a decline in mental health, deeper social divisions. Essentially, that the easy money distorted incentives, encouraged dependency, and undermined people's sense of agency and resilience.
So the economic policy had these broader negative societal ripple effects.
That's his argument, that it goes way beyond just the numbers on a balance sheet. It affects how people feel, how they interact, the very fabric of society.
Which leads him back to Bitcoin.
Right. For Knuts, Bitcoin is not just a fix for money. It's a fix for distorted societal incentives. It's about realigning things towards long-term thinking, individual responsibility, and sound value.
It's clear Knuts is passionate about these ideas, and he's not just talking about them, he's actively trying to spread them. Tell us about the Bitcoin Infinity Academy.
Yeah, this is something he created with Luke the Wolf. It's essentially an online platform
And the goal.
to provide free access to their work writings, videos, educational calls, discussions. They want to share their knowledge about Bitcoin as widely as possible.
And what's really interesting is how they're doing it, right? Their stance on intellectual property.
Exactly. That's a key part. They explicitly reject IP for their Bitcoin educational content. They believe these ideas are too important, too powerful to be locked up.
So ideas are more powerful when shared freely.
Precisely. It mirrors the open source nature of Bitcoin itself. They're walking the talk, putting their philosophy into practice by making their knowledge freely available to anyone who wants to learn.
That's pretty cool. It embodies that whole ethos.
It really does.
So let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground, from self-custody to time preference, Shawshank, and free education. If you had to boil down Knuts Svanholm's core message.
I think it comes back to that title, Bitcoin as hope in code.
Hope in code. Meaning?
It's more than finance. It's a tool encoded in software that gives individuals a way to reclaim their sovereignty, to plan for their future with more certainty, and to opt out of systems they feel are coercive or unfair.
Like escaping that metaphorical prison from Shawshank.
Exactly. Choosing freedom, choosing hope, choosing to build patiently rather than succumbing to fear or dependency. It's about liberation on a fundamental level.
A powerful vision.
Definitely. And thinking about all this, especially Net's idea of Bitcoin as a fix for distorted societal incentives, it makes you wonder, if this tool really encourages individual sovereignty and perhaps better long-term thinking, what incentives in our own lives or agreements in our communities might be worth rethinking? What might we change if we looked at them through this lens of long-term value and individual autonomy?
That's a great question to leave people with. Food for thought. So what does this all mean for you? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ideas of Knuts Svanholm. We hope it gave you some new perspectives.